Hello, hello. Hello. Hi. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to CPTSD chat. We're going to talk about CPTSD. We're going to pick up our conversation from last week on the ACEs study performed by Kaiser Permanente back in the 90s, late 90s. We're going to talk about how resilience ties into adverse childhood experiences. We're going to have a very in-depth discussion tonight, and I will do my very best to answer your questions, but I have a very in-depth screen share. It's from a paper that was published in April of 2017, so pretty recent, and you can get a link to that paper along with all of the people who were involved in publishing the paper. It's part of Creative Commons, so as long as I give them attribution, then it's going to be okay, and it's all legal. So this information that I'm giving you is definitely legal for me to be disseminating this information, as long as I, of course, give them credit where credit is due, which I'm absolutely doing. There's a link to where it was published. There's a link to all the people. There's all the references, all the different studies, the ACEs study, the work of Bessel van der Kolk and colleagues, and just all of the work that we talk about here on this channel about healing from complex trauma. So welcome. If you are an adult who experienced childhood maltreatment, or you were in an abusive situation for a prolonged period of time where you didn't feel as though you could get out, there was no way of escape, no perceived way of escape, and you are living with fear and hypervigilance and hopelessness, and you're wondering who you are and what you like and what you don't like, and you're struggling with your identity, and you find yourself in people pleaser behaviors and perhaps some codependent behaviors, and you find that you're attracting all these people who appear to be abusive, and the only common denominator is you, and you're struggling in your relationships. Perhaps it's the relationships with your spouse or with your parents or your siblings or your children. Perhaps it's a relationship with your boss or your colleagues. Maybe it's your finances. Maybe your finances are just not doing well. And maybe your relationship to money is something that you're really struggling with. And it could have come from or be a result of some mindsets that you adopted in childhood, and maybe that's what you're struggling with. And maybe your physical health is failing. Maybe you're struggling with some autoimmune disease. Maybe you are dealing with anxiety or dissociation or PTSD symptoms, an exaggerated startle response. Maybe you're dealing with some gastrointestinal issues. Maybe all this is very, very new to you, and you're just beginning your trauma recovery journey because you didn't even know there was such a thing. You're welcome here. Everyone is welcome here. Over in the chat box somewhere, we have our incredible moderators and interns, and they're posting some crisis information. These videos are never for crisis support. If you are struggling with an eating disorder or addiction or self-harm behaviors, or if you have struggled with some form of abuse or violation or attack or assault, there are crisis numbers being posted in the chat box for you right now. And any of you who have struggled in the past or feel that maybe it might be beneficial for someone out there who might be struggling, please highlight that information in the chat box, tweet that out, share that on Facebook, share that on LinkedIn, share that on something you share over on Pinterest or Instagram or somewhere on social media. If you are dealing with thoughts of suicide, there's a suicide prevention lifeline. And if you prefer text messages, the crisistextline.org, our friends over there will be able to help you. You simply text the word START to 741-741, I believe is the number. And if you're outside of the United States and you're living in the UK, our friends over at the Samaritans are always ready to help you as well. They have a 24/7 live chat feature for you, or you can email J-O at Samaritans.org. I'm super excited that you've chosen to show up for yourself tonight. I'm really happy to be leading this discussion. It's a neuroeducational discussion. All that really means is that we are going to talk about neuroscience and how neuroscience is affecting trauma-informed care. Trauma-informed care came from the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, which we talked about last week. So, Mark, maybe Mark can pop up a card, or maybe it's here, a YouTube card that would link to last week's video, or perhaps Mark and his team could link a link to last week's video right down in the description section of this video, or down in the comment section. Or if you're visiting here, let me know you're here. Let me know you're here in the chat box. Let me know you're here in the comment section. Say hello. Have these videos been helpful for you? Give this video a thumbs up if our channel has helped you at all. We've been here every single week since 2014. And we're supporting the community of adults who are healing from complex trauma. And this is what we do. This is what we love. And if you want to have discussions like this, 365 days a year, I lead discussions like this 365 days a year over on my website at cptsdfoundation.org. And I have an amazing group of people. I have volunteers. I have amazing survivors and practitioners and advocates and authors just like you who show up. And you can find information about that at cptsdfoundation.org. Just look for a button that says daily calls. If you're a person that is just sort of getting started and you don't even know what this whole trauma recovery journey is all about, that's okay. Maybe you like to read books. We have a book club. You can go to cptsdfoundation.org and you can click on Healing Book Club. We also have a cruise coming up to learn how to take better care of ourselves. September 2019, it's called the Self-Care Cruise. We're going to be having industry leaders on anxiety and codependency and complex trauma and narcissistic abuse. And they're going to be speaking and having workshops there for you while you learn how to practice excellent self-care and get away for a week or so, just to learn how to do that. And if all that is just too much for you to even think about, that's okay. There are free groups for you to get involved with on Facebook, and you can find access to those over at cptsdfoundation.org. And again, I'm really excited to have you here. So I do have a screen share. It's quite lengthy. I'm going to try to get through it tonight all in one video. We might have to do a 2-week series on resilience. Resilience is a big topic. One of our community members, Vi, recommended this topic last week in one of her questions. And I said, I think I want to record a separate video on the topic of resilience. And so we're going to talk about resilience as it relates to trauma-informed care, which comes from the ACEs study, and neuroscience. Neuroscience plus trauma-informed care, and staying in your resilience zone and developing those skills. Anyone can develop them, anyone, no one's disqualified. Then you can become resilient and you can heal. So we're going to talk about that tonight. There is something called a resilience zone, and we're going to look at what the resilience zone looks like. And we're also going to look at what being outside of your resilience zone looks like. So if you're like me and you just like to nerd out on all things neuroscience and brain, and if you're suffering from a brain injury as a result of being involved in severe trauma in childhood, and you're still living with those symptoms in adulthood, then this is where you belong. You're with us. You're with the right people. I like to nerd out on all this stuff. I spend all my time researching it, and then I show up here once a week and I share with everybody what it is that I learned. Or I show up every day and we talk about it on the daily calls, but then I get to show up here with you on video on Mondays. So I'm super honored that you've chosen to be here today. Thank you to everyone who's sending in their questions right now. We'll be accepting questions for another 15 minutes, and I'll do my very best to answer them tonight. Thank you to John Harvey, and thank you to Heroes Don't Wear Capes. And don't forget to check out our new Facebook page, you guys. If you go to facebook.com/CPTSD Foundation, I think that's how you find it. Otherwise, just go onto Facebook and search in the little bar there, CPTSD Foundation, or you can even just go to Google, I guess, and type in CPTSD Foundation Facebook, and you'll be given a link, and you'll be able to see. And our amazing volunteers, Rhonda is one of the most incredible moderators we have, and she's over there helping out, and Matt is helping out as well. We have tons of awesome information being put out by just volunteers in our community like you, other survivors who love to just study and research and learn and inform yourself about what has actually happened to you over the years and how you can heal from that. So head on over, and just, if you like what I'm talking about, then maybe you could like our Facebook page. That would be awesome. Like our Facebook page if that's something that you're interested in. And I think that's all for all the announcements, and just sharing with you how you can connect with us for either affordable or free, or something that's, like a luxury, like going and learning how to practice excellent self-care in the midst of a cruise in the Caribbean somewhere, or is it the Netherlands or Puerto Rico or something? It's just somewhere, and it's in September 2019, and I'm going to have a lot more information about that soon. So super excited you guys are here. So thanks to everyone who has sent in their questions. John Harvey wants to know, how do I deal with family during these holidays, this Thanksgiving holiday coming up? The United States is getting ready to celebrate Thanksgiving. I have recorded a video on Thanksgiving and how to survive holidays. And I believe there's one particularly on Thanksgiving. Then there's another one on winter holidays, John Harvey, and it's on this YouTube channel. So you can find that for sure. And then if you're alone, then perhaps, I don't know, I could do like a live stream in some of our groups just to come and say hello to you. I'm definitely working until I think like 4 o'clock that day, my time, which is like 9 o'clock your guys' time, I think. So yeah, I don't want you guys to feel like you're all alone. We're your family, your friendly family of choice. And we've all kind of, been together here for the last 4 years or so. And I don't want you to feel like you're all alone, John Harvey. So I'll answer that to the best of my ability a little bit later, or you could check out that video as well. And Heroes Don't Wear Capes says, I feel like I had bullshit resilience. It looked like I was resilient, but it was actually resourcefulness. And now in adulthood, these coping strategies don't work. I'm not resilient at all. That's a lie, actually. That's a lie, Heroes Don't Wear Capes. You are resilient. And I believe the reason I know that you're resilient is because we're going to go through a model, and we're going to look at what resilience looks like a little bit later. And I can automatically see that there are parts of your life and parts of you that are very, very, very resilient. And there might be, it's not even that your strategies don't work. It's that life happens. And sometimes life happens and we don't always have an answer for everything. It just takes a little bit of time. So please be patient with yourself. So any other questions that come in within the next 12 minutes, I'll do my best to answer after we do the screen share. But this is quite a lengthy screen share. So if you all who are already here, there's like 40 of you who are already here, if you could let others know when they tune in that we're doing a little bit of a longer screen share tonight, and that I'll pop on when I'm done with that screen share, and then I'll do my best to answer people's questions, then that would be super awesome. But I'm gonna need my glasses, and thank you for sending in your questions. Thank you for being here, you guys. We're gonna talk about resilience. We're gonna talk about how to develop resilience and what it looks like, and what is a resilience zone, and what does it look like to be in your resilience zone, and what does it look like to be outside of your resilience zone, and how to get there. And we're going to zoom through this paper that I linked down in the description section of this video, and we're going to hit some high points and hit some bullet points, and then I'll pop back on and we'll just have an open discussion about this paper and just hear your thoughts and answer your questions to the best of my ability. Okay. And the way you ask questions on this YouTube channel is by tagging one of our moderators so that they can send the question to me on my Slack channel. Because if I were to sit here and read everything that was going on, I don't think I would be able to focus or concentrate, because I would want to just hang out and take part in the conversation with you guys. Okay. So please tag Matt tonight. He's moderating tonight, and I will do my best to answer all your guys' questions. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the screen share now, talking about resilience. And remember, we're keeping in mind the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences study, done by Kaiser Permanente in the late 90s. And we're also keeping in mind neuroscience and neuroplasticity. And we're going to meld the two in with trauma-informed care, and we're going to come out with what resiliency looks like and how we can keep ourselves informed and do a better job of not being emotionally dysregulated on a regular basis. So I want to let Heroes Don't Wear Capes know that as well, because there are some things that we who study things on the internet, what we do is we read and we watch videos and we research and we want to find out exactly what it is that happened to us and how to feel better. And then if we don't take into consideration the brain scan technology and what neuroscience says about our brains and how our brains process information, then we can actually re-traumatize ourselves by looking things up on the internet and by watching videos and by educating ourselves. We have to look at it through the lens of neuroscience, which is the truth about what's going on with our brains and what our brains are capable of. Modern neuroscience. This is as of 2017. So keep that in mind. Heroes Don't Wear Capes. You might get some answers tonight for some things that you're looking for. Okay? So let me see if I can bring this up now for you guys, and then we'll go ahead and I'll come back and answer some more of your questions afterwards. Let's see. I think this is the right one. Let me know if you can see this. Can you all see the screen share okay? There we go. Let me know if you can see that, okay? So again, we're having a neuroeducational discussion on resilience as a follow-up from our adverse childhood experiences discussion last week. The work of clinicians and other service providers who design and implement programs for vulnerable populations, such as CPTSD for survivors, have been greatly enhanced by the incorporation of two building blocks of understanding. Number one, Kaiser Permanente's Adverse Childhood Experiences study, and number two, the growing use and refinement of a values-based orientation to individuals that draws upon ACEs findings called trauma-informed care. Now, real quickly here. I almost was going to just turn this back on so I could look at you. In fact, I think I want to for just a second. So I want you guys to remember what we're talking about in trauma-informed care. Okay, so trauma-informed care is always, this is what's happening now. These are your coping strategies that are happening now. Perhaps you have an eating disorder or addiction or self-harm or suicidal ideation or dissociation and numbing and or other things that are coping strategies that worked for you previously when you were younger. And those are things that you desire to change now. These are your symptoms now, okay? Now, all of this, let's pretend they're like petals on a flower, like we talked about previously. Well, the root is all the way back here. What's going on with this root all the way back here? Do we remember from our discussions from previous? So this is neglect, abuse. Our parents got a divorce. Perhaps we were perpetrated upon. Maybe there was verbal abuse. Maybe there was emotional abuse, physical abuse, all types of forms of abuse. Perhaps there was mental illness in our family. Perhaps there was addiction. Perhaps there was a lot of different family dysfunction going on in our lives. And in order to not be in so much pain from all of this that happened a long time ago, throughout all the time, leading all the way up until now, we do things numbing, stuffing, and avoiding through addiction, self-harm, eating disorders, suicidal ideation, and other numbing behaviors, stuffing behaviors, avoiding behaviors, busyness, social media addiction, all kinds of things, okay? Shopping, gambling, you name it. Sometimes promiscuity. There's all kinds of things that we do now as a result of all of this that happened a long time ago, because this is painful stuff back here. And we don't want to deal with it. We can't deal with it. We think we're going to die if we have to deal with it, because when we were younger, if we had to deal with it when we were a child, we probably would have died because we needed protection. And maybe you didn't have safety. Maybe you weren't kept safe. Remember, this is always about that. This is always about that. That's trauma-informed care. Always through the lens of this being always about that. Okay? So, that being said, the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences study that we talked about last week, which you can access at aces2high.com, ACESTOOHIGH.com. Okay, that's how you can find out your ACEs score. You can also find out your resilience score on that website. Tonight's talk is about resilience. So I'm going to go back and then I'm going to go through the screen share in its entirety to help you guys and to have an open discussion on this topic so we can understand how neuroscience plays a part in the trauma-informed care movement that happened as a result of the Adverse Childhood Experiences study. It's super duper duper important. Super important for us, those who are researching and looking and trying to find answers for what's going on in our lives and for why we're struggling, okay? So there's hope. Just remember, you walk away with anything from this video, there's hope, okay? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go back to our screen share now, and I'll be back in a little while when I'm done going through it. Fasten your seatbelts. This is gonna be a good discussion. Let me know if you guys can see this. Okay. So the ACEs study and trauma-informed care have generated important strides in helping service providers as well as clients better understand the impact of distressing and traumatic events on a wide range of health indicators and behaviors. Incorporating findings from the ACEs study into trauma-informed care can reduce the pathologizing of symptomatic behavior by viewing symptoms as normal reactions to abnormal experiences, foster screenings for trauma history during intakes, like when you go to the doctors, right? If we're doing trauma-informed care, when you go to the doctors, they're going to screen you for these things, for your ACEs, for your adverse childhood experiences, anything that happened before the age of 18. It can also reduce pathologizing behavior by helping the staff of the different doctor's offices and hospitals practice this, a way of strengthening relationships between providers, clients, and enhance personal safety to create a sense of welcome and respect in the service delivery spaces. All that means is that the doctors and nurses and the helping professionals would treat you as though you have very normal responses to abnormal experiences that happened to you a long time ago. That is super important. The way you're feeling and the way you're acting is a normal response to something abnormal. You're having a normal reaction to an abnormal experience. It's abnormal to be abused at length for long periods of time by people in whom you were supposed to trust. And the sooner that the doctors and the nurses and the helping professionals understand that this is always about that, then the better off everyone will be. And lastly, inspire delivery of preventative services to vulnerable individuals and families as early as possible. It's super important for us to look at this term as early as possible. So I know you guys have heard me talk about, reaching a younger demographic. How am I going to reach younger people? Well, I already am, in a way, sort of targeting some of the content that I do and getting ready to launch that vlog channel that I told you guys about. A lot of younger people that are in their teens and early 20s, they spend their time watching vlogs. They would prefer to watch a video log of someone's real life than to watch fabricated television. And so I'll be reaching a younger demographic, people in their 20s and in their teens, through my vlog channel. And I'm actually co-authoring a children's book, and I'm also co-authoring a parenting book. And so those are ways that we can reach individuals and families as early as possible. We can reach the parents to help them parent the children. We can reach people consuming content when they're younger through vlogs and other information. And then a children's book will reach children with messages of hope and healing, and the fact that everything out there that's in the world, everything they're going through is talk aboutable. It's important for the children to know that everything is talk aboutable. It's okay to talk about stuff. It's okay to speak up. And then imagine if we would have been told that when we were younger, that everything is talk aboutable. I mean, I think that some of us would have healed a lot sooner, you know? So the article that I'm sharing with you guys is a brief overview of the two important contributions that I discussed, which is the ACEs study and trauma-informed care, and the unintended consequences that can influence practices and programs to the detriment of us, the very individuals they intend to serve, us, the mental health consumer, us, the man who is on his lunch break trying to look up why he struggles to focus and why all of his relationships are failing, the woman who comes home from work and just sits there on her phone looking up article after article after article of why she feels so depressed all the time. And you guys, unless we keep in mind what's going on in current neuroscience studies, we will have a detrimental effect. It will have a detrimental effect on us if we do all this research and we don't keep in mind how our brain processes information. So recommendations are discussed in this particular article are incorporating key neuroscience concepts into trauma-informed care and the use of neuroscience-based self-regulation skills for staff and clients. That's us. And they're going to give us a specific framework for designing information gathering processes, including research and evaluation, as well as client intakes. So again, they're going to start practicing more trauma-informed care in institutions where when you go in, they actually ask you questions about what happened to you before your 18th birthday in your family of origin. And this will be able to help them reach people at a younger age and help them with actual symptoms and not just give them drugs to treat depression and other things that they are misdiagnosed with as a result of adverse childhood experiences. And when we do all of that, the framework that we're going to talk about includes attention to protective experiences and characteristics and promotes research and evaluation design in a way that explicitly is intended to create a rhythm or a pattern of questioning that's in the doctor's offices that enhances resilience and decreases distress and potential re-traumatization. That means less re-traumatization across the board. So adverse childhood experiences study, this is what we discussed at length last week in our weekly Q&A video, right? From 1995 to 1997, there were, I believe, 17,000 adults. That's the sample size, 17,000. And the study was published in 1998 by Kaiser Permanente and Vincent Felitti, and it was awesome. So trauma-informed care came about as a result of that. And the government organization, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, also known as SAMHSA, they define the four main points defining trauma-informed care realizing that trauma has a widespread impact on individuals, the ability to recognize the signs and symptoms of trauma in clients, staff, and others in the system, integration of trauma knowledge into policies, programs, and practices, and then they're also seeking to avoid re-traumatization. So they really want to depathologize. They don't want to be pathologizing people and just calling them different words and making people feel as though they're just a sum of their symptoms, right? And one of the ways that they're actually working towards this is by using MRIs, neuroimaging techniques. MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. Those are the brain scans that I showed you pictures of when I was showing you a picture of Kathy Browse's book called Don't Try This Alone. I think I have it here somewhere. Where did it go? Oh no, it's over there. Sorry, guys. So some of the unintended consequences that were brought on by the ACEs study and trauma-informed care is that there's an over attention to the negative. We're like, oh my gosh, I scored a perfect 10 on the ACEs study. Oh my gosh, what does that even mean? So there's less emphasis on bringing in neuroscience and how the brain actually processes information, and the question that the questions that are asked on the ACEs study are worded in such a way that the only response is that you're feeling even worse and worse and worse about your situation. Now, it's realistic. I scored a perfect 10 on the ACEs study, right? And that's not a good thing. That's one of the things you don't want to score a perfect 10 on. So there were also some ethical issues. So in collecting data from anyone, but particularly from individuals who are vulnerable, like us, those who are adults who survived childhood maltreatment and are now living with complex trauma, developmental trauma, CPTSD symptoms, it is essential to pay attention to the potential for re-traumatization during information gathering, like what memories come up when you're answering these questions. The method of data collection and the content of the items are dimensions of human subjects protection that may be considered. The ACEs survey and the BRFSS are both, and that's one of the other surveys that's used in doctors' offices. They're both large surveys that collect only trauma-specific data, and they're not administered face-to-face. So again, they go online to aces2high.com and they ask questions about, spanking and suicidal thoughts and sexual abuse and all kinds of things. And it can be really, 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 really re-traumatizing for us, the mental health consumer. So a third area that is an unintended consequence, some things that were kind of that leave us at a deficit, are the relationship and manageability. Don't miss this. Please pay close attention to what I'm going to share with you in this particular part, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about Bessel van der Kolk, and you guys know I'm a huge fangirl of his, and we here on this channel talk a lot about his work because we do have an in-body experience when we're talking about trauma. So it can be a challenge to attract and maintain vulnerable individuals like us in services who are not court-ordered. Clients might present once and then not return. Or after a telephone intake, they may not come in for an initial session. So what this means is that they can't even take care of us once we've answered these questions of whether or not we were abused, right? So, I mean, there are questions that are being asked on these surveys that are bringing up in-body sensations about horrific trauma that happened 5, 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30, 40 years ago, right? So an example of a question asked in the revised intake to build more complete knowledge of us, the people who would be taking the test, is if your good friend was here with us today and I asked her what she likes best about you, what would she say? So questions like this one can change the quality of the exchange and just decrease suspicion and hostility, because the questions that are asked on other questionnaires are about all the bad things that ever happened to us. the horrific things that happened to us when we were children. And it doesn't bring about and talk about us as a human, us as an individual, right? And it can be very triggering for us to answer a question about horrific things that happen to us, whether it's regarding being trafficked as when we were children or being arrested. And so Bessel, he in his work, Body Keeps the Score, and in multiple papers that have been published, he highlights the need to look at the ecology of the lives as a richer way to understand the individuals, moving beyond and over the focus on the negative. When the emotionally challenging details of the traumatic experiences, which are required in order to convict a trafficking perpetrator, can be balanced with strength-oriented questions about the person taking the survey. And then trust and safety can slowly be built. And then and worker overwhelm and defensive armoring decreases. These in turn can enhance the stability of both the teen and the provider. So they're looking to build the relationship between us and the medical provider so that we're not only focused on, we're not feeling like we're being peppered with questions about all the horrible things that happened to us when we were younger, and not anything else about us that brings about how strong we are to have come through all of that. So we're not feeling as emotionally dysregulated by the questions, as triggered by the questions, because we're also able to offset those or titrate those with good questions about things that are going on in our lives as well. Another compelling reason for intentionally weaving strengths into both research and practice comes from what neuroscience research has found about the human nervous system and its powerful role in the regulation of physical, emotional, and cognitive functioning. Information gathering processes can be developed in a way that mimic the rhythm of the autonomic nervous system when it is in a healthy, regulated balance. We're going to look at a diagram before I lose a whole bunch of you when I start talking about autonomic nervous systems and brain scans and all of that. We're going to look at a very easy diagram as soon as I'm done reading this, and we're gonna look at exactly what it looks like to be in our resilience zone, which is all this is talking about. So this means creating a rhythm of calming and activating questions throughout the process. Then ask a few questions that generate parasympathetic calming, followed by a couple of questions that might be activating. Activating just is another fancy word for triggering. So they're titrating the questions. They're going to ask a question that will generate a parasympathetic nervous system calming and like an outside of us, like something about someone else, that type of a response in our brain, followed by a couple of questions that they really need to ask, which is about our trauma history. And then they would follow that with a calming question and so on. So workers and helping professionals can learn to track the patterns of activation and calming by noticing such sensory details as breathing, muscle tension, relaxation, facial coloration, posture, and gestures. And also what my trauma therapist notices, because she practices all of this on a regular basis, she notices the way that I tend to yawn, or the way I clench my hands, or the way I move my shoulders, or the way I move my mouth. This sensory information can help guide the decision to shift from activating to calming questions and decrease the potential for dysregulation. Now, remember, this word here, dysregulation, is one of the main things that helping professionals use to diagnose mental illness. They look at our level of emotional dysregulation and our lack of distress tolerance, and they decide what type of mental illness we have if they're using the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Illnesses, 5th edition, the DSM-5. And so if they, the practitioners, are titrating or alternating their questions from being triggering questions to a calming question, triggering questions to a calming question, and they're actually administering these types of surveys in person or verbally under the supervision of them, the practitioner, then they're going to have a much higher rate of accuracy, and they're going to be able to take into consideration current neuroscience and the way the brain processes information, and they will be able to help us to remain more emotionally regulated and build distress tolerance skills, which is what is necessary to become resilient. And lastly, or not lastly, second to last, the last one we're going to talk about is how the lack of neuroscience-based information in understanding trauma and how that is how things used to be done, but it's what needs to be done differently. So number 5, information is not enough. They can't just administer a test from online, have us fill out a questionnaire, and look at the information and then figure out what it is that's needed. So they're not going to be able to help us build resilience just by us filling out, like, just telling them about a whole bunch of symptoms. That would limit the service provider's ability to design trauma and resilience-informed interventions that link the mind and the body that can decrease reactivity. Particularly lacking are interventions that use practical skills to promote the capacity for self-regulation. Self-regulation is big. This is big. This is what we learn in dialectical behavior therapy. This is what we learn in a lot of mindfulness practices. This is what we learn when we go to trauma therapy, when we're in group. Self-regulation is something we practice on a daily basis during our daily recovery support calls. We're all there sharing, receiving the support from everyone else, and then we take away what we've learned and we practice that ourselves. And then we come back and we show up for ourselves the next day. An essential building block of well-being, as well as mastery and dignity, is knowing how to modulate your own reactivity or your own triggers, your own emotional dysregulation. Okay? And again, I want to repeat that sentence. Okay, this is not just for people like us who are living with CPTSD. This is for every human on the planet. This is for all of humanity. An essential building block of well-being, as well as mastery and dignity, is knowing how to modulate your own reactivity, your own triggers, your own emotional dysregulation. This is true for providers as well as clients. And lastly, lack of neuroscience-based information in understanding trauma. Too few interventions, and interventions doesn't mean that there's a big couch with all of your family members on it and they're intervening and telling you that you need to go off to treatment, like on the show Intervention. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about trauma-informed interventions. We're talking about best practices. We're talking about modalities that help you, EMDR, trauma-sensitive yoga, IFS, internal family systems. We're talking about all of these different expressive modalities, art journaling, art therapy. All of these interventions need to keep in mind, they need to come from not only a trauma-informed approach, but they need to keep in mind what current, accurate, peer-reviewed research and current neuroscience suggests about the impact of trauma on the mind-body symptoms. When our symptoms and behaviors are viewed from a neurobiological lens that highlights how the human nervous system is wired to respond to threat and fear, the use of negative labels decreases, and the focus is on finding ways to bring the nervous system back into balance, which is what we're going to talk about tonight on the diagrams that I have below this paragraph. The incorporation of neurobiological knowledge facilitates the design of skills-based interventions suitable across cultures and with groups that may stigmatize or not have access to or willingness for counseling, since all humans, regardless of culture, gender, race, ethnicity, are wired similarly in their response to perceived threat and fear. These interventions target regulation of the nervous system rather than putting a primacy on insight and emotion. And so what we're going to talk about here, cognitions and emotions are included in these approaches, but they are secondary. So we're going to look at trauma-informed care and how it can be greatly enriched by the incorporation of the findings from neuroscience research that currently are absent in most approaches. Expanding the trauma-informed care knowledge base enables the design of a wider and more culturally sensitive range of intervention, including teaching self-regulation skills for use in self-care, as well as peer-to-peer, which is what we do on the daily recovery support calls. 3 of these key concepts from neuroscience that could enhance trauma-informed care are described as autonomic nervous system. You can have access to this whole entire paper and all of the neuroeducation that I'm talking about today in the comment, not in the comment section, in the description section of this video. There is a link to this paper. B, the fast and slow systems of information processing. Now this talks about fight, flight, freeze, and tend and befriend. And that's, as per Pete Walker, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Okay? And then we're going to talk about neuroplasticity and self-regulation. And then this is what I've been talking about. This is the resilience zone. I feel like I want to make this bigger. Let me see if this will go bigger. Can you guys see that? I hope you can see the whole thing. You see when you're in the resilient zone? I hope you can see this. Okay, so in the resilient zone, individuals have the best capacity for flexibility and adaptability, pro-social behavior versus antisocial behavior, executive functioning. And executive functioning is when we're able to like make a list of things that need to get done and then get those things done. One of the main symptoms of CPTSD as a result of complex trauma or childhood maltreatment, adverse childhood experiences, whatever you want to say, is that you have a list of things to do and your list never gets done. And then you feel extremely overwhelmed. You wake up overwhelmed because you didn't finish your list yesterday and your list just keeps getting bigger, 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 bigger. So executive functioning helps you organize those things and feel confident in your body. So when you're in the resilient zone, you have the best capacity for your executive functioning, and you have the best capacity for being responsive rather than reactive. And that is huge. Imagine if you calmly responded to things rather than reacting to them because you're triggered. So the sympathetic charge, which is the activation, or what we know to be in PTSD language as the trigger, will flow up. The parasympathetic release, which is calming, is when we are asked a question about, something that is very calming, or a question about someone else. And then that will go down, and then it will go up, and we'll continue processing what it is that was on our mind. Okay. So individuals, that's us, can learn to remain in and return to the resilient zone. And we can talk next week about different ways that we can do this. We can break it down if you want. Like, what are ways that we can remain in and return to the resilient zone instead of your autonomic autonomic nervous system rhythm. This is what your autonomic nervous system rhythm looks like in your resilient zone. And this is what it looks like when you're not in your resilient zone. Okay. This is when you're stuck on high or hyper arousal. Now, remember, we've talked about this on this channel before. Hyper arousal is when you are hyper vigilant. You have anxiety or panic attacks, or you're feeling really irritable, or you're feeling really filled with rage and anger. You're in a lot of pain. And hypoarousal is when you're feeling really low and numb, or you're stuck in a prolonged freeze response, or you're feeling fatigued or exhausted. You're feeling super disconnected from everyone and everything, including yourself, or you're feeling depressed. Now, people living with CPTSD symptoms, people who endured adverse childhood experiences, who experienced attachment trauma or developmental trauma, complex trauma, and you're adults now, you vary between the two. You are either experiencing a distressing event or a trigger, which causes you to feel anxiety or irritability or rage or pain or panic or hypervigilance or mania or hyperactivity, or you are, and then you run yourself out, and then all of a sudden you're immediately like, you burned out, you're exhausted, and you're experiencing fatigue, or you feel really numb, or you just feel frozen and unable, like you're just completely frozen in time, and you're paralyzed. A lot of you tell me that you feel paralyzed, and many of you tell me that you feel disconnected from everyone and everything, including yourself, and many of you have been misdiagnosed with depression. So you guys, this is a thing, okay? This one paper somehow managed to cover all the things that we have been talking about on this channel for 4.5 years. This is where we reside on a regular basis, living with CPTSD symptoms. We are either in hypoarousal or hyperarousal, and we're varying between the two. And notice where we're not, okay? Look where we're not. Here, this is the resilient zone. This is the resilient zone. That's where we're not. Okay? And that's when we react to a trigger and we get stuck in hyperarousal, and then we go back down once we're exhausted, down here to hypoarousal, and then then something triggers us and we're back up here in hyperarousal. And then we're exhausted and we go back down to hypoarousal. And then we're like, okay, well, I'm just going to go to sleep. We sleep for 5, 10, 12 hours, whatever. We were like, woo, okay, I feel fantastic, on top of the world. Woohoo! Yay! I'm feeling awesome. I'm going to travel. I'm going to go out with my girlfriends. I'm going to go have drinks. I'm going to go out with my buddies. We're going to watch the football game. We're going to go here. We're going to go there. We're going to play ping pong. We're going to go to this concert. It's going to be amazing. We're going to meet up at the bookstore, and it's going to be so, oh my gosh, I'm horribly, horribly depressed, and I'm exhausted, and I just can't do it anymore. It's just, I feel like I want to die. I know yesterday I felt like I was on top of the world, but today I'm having some pretty passive to active suicidal ideation. If I died, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, because at least I would be out of pain. I know the pain is coming. It's coming. I feel it. And then all of a sudden, you rest for a little while and you're like, okay, here we go. And then you're back up here again. And perhaps you experience a trigger and then you do the whole thing all over again. But what if we could learn to remain in and return to this resilient zone? I believe we can. Why? Because modern neuroscience and brain scans that don't lie from a MRI machine that are being studied by people like Peter Levine and Dan Siegel and Pat Ogden and Bessel van der Kolk and Bruce Perry and all of the peeps, right? All of the heroes of our industry, all of our heroes, Pete Walker, all those people. These brain scans are being studied, and they're going, wait a second here. Look, we can get them to this place here. And the way we got them here is by titrating these different questions. Look at the way we got them to this resilient zone. Look at the way we got them to be able to respond rather than react. Many of you are listening right now and you're calling bullshit on the whole thing. Many of you are like, this is too good to be true. Maybe this is true for you, Athena, but it's not true for me. It's not, you're like those people that are out there telling me to be happy and that happiness is a choice. You're not living with clinical depression. You don't know what I'm talking about. And, I just want to tell you guys, like, the struggle is real. Like, I have struggled too. I was totally suicidal multiple times. I'm glad I didn't complete my suicide, because I wouldn't be here with you guys. I wouldn't be able to help you now. I'm not saying that my life is perfect now. This isn't some kumbaya telling you that everything's better and that I'm figuring it all out and I'm good now. Like, I don't need any help. I'm good. You guys are the ones that are broken. Like, that's not what's going on. I'm telling you that the struggle is real. The pain is real. Whoever out there is telling you that you need to hurry up and get over it and move on, they don't get to speak into your life anymore, because they didn't walk in your shoes. Okay? Anyone who's telling you that happened a long time ago, you need to just get over it, You need to just do me a huge solid and just not listen to them. You need to just not listen to those people. Okay? Anyone who really cares about you and is looking out for your well-being is going to tell you the struggle is real. Hypoarousal and hyperarousal are things. Reacting to triggers isn't a choice. PTSD isn't a choice. We don't wake up one day and go, I know I want to get freaked out and homicidal and suicidal whenever I hear certain noises or smell certain smells or get touched on the shoulder and I don't know anybody's behind me. That's what I want. Yeah, I want to isolate myself from the entire world's population, and then I want to die and spend my time just wishing I were dead. Like, nobody wakes up wanting that. This isn't stuff we asked for. Okay? We were perpetrated against. Bad things happened. We don't get over that right away. We don't get over that overnight. This stuff is real. But I'm telling you, if neuroscience says that we can get to a resilient zone, it's worth me checking out. I'm going to check that out. I'm going to test it. I'm going to try. Okay? And then if I can maybe make a little bit of progress in it, then I'm going to share it with you guys. And I'm going to see if any of you guys can make any progress. And maybe you just need to know it's possible. When I was reading that book by Kathy Browse, Don't Try This Alone, and she was talking about the Grief Recovery Handbook, which I had already done years prior. And then she was talking about singing and performing and the vibrations that happen and just the way different human connections are made and how that is healing for our parasympathetic nervous system and our autonomic nervous system. And she was talking about all that as a result of attachment disorder, trauma that happens early, like in utero or like birth to 18 months. And she was saying how horribly suicidal that she was for a really long time and how every relationship of hers had failed and that she was now feeling well and whole and happy and healthy and as though there was hope. I was like, what? Those brain scans, those MRIs that she has in her book, I'm like, what? I began digging. I got to figure this stuff out for myself. I can't just read a book and be like, well, somebody wrote it. It must be true. Like, no, I want to really know. I want to figure it out. Right? So that's what we're doing. We're figuring this out, you guys. We're figuring it out. And my son is studying neuroscience right now at a private college in California on his GI Bill from being in the military. Thank you for your service, by the way, Pumpkin. I love you. Happy Veterans Day, reserved, because it's Monday. Observed, not reserved. Happy Veterans Day observed to my son and his wife, who is serving in the Army right now. But you guys, he's studying neuroscience. I'm going to run this by him. Like, I'm not just going to like gulp it up and just swallow it as true. No, I'm going to look into this. Seriously, it's worth it. They're saying that there's a zone and that we're able to somehow fluctuate the way that we receive information and the things that we allow into our minds, and it can keep us in that zone, and that we'll be able to tell when we're outside of that zone. Now that we know what it looks like to be outside of that zone, we can go, oh, well, if I was in that zone and now I'm clearly out of that zone, let me see what I can do to get back into that zone. Right? You guys, if this is even possible, you all are going to be the second to know, because I'm going to figure it out. All right. So John Harvey, I think the cure to not being alone on Thanksgiving, John Harvey says, how do I deal with family this Thanksgiving, or how to have a good Thanksgiving if you are alone for survivors? I say that perhaps we can like do like a live stream or like a chat or like a get together, like in our Facebook groups, just to get together and sort of check in and say hello to one another, like a virtual Thanksgiving. I think that's a great idea. And then Heroes Don't Wear Capes. How do you feel about that, John Harvey? Heroes Don't Wear Capes says, I feel like I had bullshit resilience. It looked like I was resilience, but it was actually resourcefulness. And now in adulthood, these coping strategies don't work and I'm not resilient at all. I actually think that you are resilient. I do. I just think that perhaps we are out of our resilient zone. Maybe we're in hyper arousal or hypo arousal, and there's a reason for it, right? Because we're living with CPTSD symptoms as a result of complex trauma and adverse childhood experiences. So I think we can build upon them. I really do. Connie says, Athena, how do you get over the head to heart issue? How can you connect them? Ooh, Miss Connie, this is a good question. So, for those of you who are tuning in and you're here live and you're in the chat box and you're talking amongst one another, you know that I often talk about just how we need to be patient with ourselves, right? This is unfortunately one of those things, Connie, where it's going to take some trial and error and it's going to take some time. So, for instance, in your head, you know, like, okay, that looks like something that I can accomplish. I'm going to be able to do that. That looks like something that's doable. And yet, your in-body experience of what's going on is like maybe you're hypervigilant, maybe you're afraid to try, or maybe you feel hopeless or disconnected, or you're in like a hypo arousal state, even though you're like, but I see that it's possible. I see that that's possible, but I just don't feel like it's possible. So the only thing that's ever worked for me, besides just waiting and being patient with myself until I have the energy, for me, it's all about the energy, Connie. If I'm looking at a goal and I'm looking at something that's possible, or I believe in my head that something is possible, I have to actually wait until I feel inspired with energy to do something or to go after it or to try to reach that goal or meet that goal or work towards that. I have to wait. I have to wait until, so that I'm not forcing myself. If I'm feeling resistance in my body, I'm moving forward with something, even though I know it's true, I will actually wait until I feel inspired, like a burst of sort of energy to sort of connect my heart to that. Like I wait. I've learned I didn't used to wait, Connie. I didn't used to wait. I used to force myself to like do things and try things that I didn't want to do because I thought, well, I really should. And I was shoulding myself all over the place. I stopped doing that. I can't do that anymore. I can't do that anymore for a lot of reasons. But one of the main reasons I can't do that anymore is I will end up under the bed covers. I will burn myself out and I won't be able to make videos to help people. I won't be able to show up for my daily calls. I won't be able to read the books. I won't be able to watch the videos and read the scholarly articles and the peer-reviewed papers and reach out and try to connect with, people in the industry and interview them and ask them questions. And I won't have the energy to do those things that I feel like I'm actually called to do if I push myself. So I have to be patient with myself and I have to wait. I have to get in touch with my body, first of all, to even know what my body is feeling. And then once I realize what my body's feeling, then I wait until I actually feel like I can take a step forward. And the only way any of this even happens, Connie, I should have mentioned this first, is that I write down my goals. Like I have to write down my goals. Because if I don't write it down or put it in my calendar, and it doesn't mean like handwrite, like I can type it into my calendar or whatever, but I have to physically write it down or type it or whatever. I have to make sure that it's in writing, or it will never happen. And that is just for me. If that's not for you, then that's cool, but that's the way it is for me. So I hope that was helpful. Angela says, is it true that you never heal from CPTSD? That all we learn in therapy is just to manage our symptoms, but we'll never truly be free of it? I wouldn't word it that way. I know there's not an easy button for CPTSD, but I believe that we can manage our symptoms in such a way that we feel like a new, more whole individual than we were to begin with, whenever that was. So I don't think I would word it like, you'll never heal. You're just going to manage your symptoms. But at the same, that being said, Angela, I believe I would be doing you a huge disservice to tell you that you're just going to wake up one day or take a pill and everything's going to be fine. The reason, in fact, that's a good sort of segue, Angela. I'm really appreciative that you've asked this question, because there's a lot of controversy in the community about this question. They're like, well, there's not a cure for PTSD, so how can there be a cure for CPTSD? How can there be a cure? It's complex PTSD. And if people living with PTSD are never going to heal and they're always going to have PTSD, then how can you say that there's a cure for CPTSD? And my answer to them is, first of all, I have hope. I have hope that I can figure my way around what it is that I'm dealing with. And even if I have to find 12 workarounds, that's going to feel to me like I've healed, because the 12 workarounds might not look simple to other people, but I've found out a way to work around my symptoms that causes me to feel like a sovereign, whole individual that gets to enjoy her life and live with purpose and show up and help people, right? And one thing that is true that I have found, Angela, is that there are many things out there that can help people living with mental illness. They result, there are different interventions. There are different evidence-based modalities that are able to decrease your symptoms in such a way that you don't even remember what it was like before. EMDR is one of them. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. You're able to reprocess those traumatic memories in such a way that neuroplasticity is real. Our brains are malleable. EMDR will take your trauma memories and it will help you make a new road so that you're not able to go down that old road anymore, which is the road that you went down when you were triggered into an anxiety attack or some PTSD symptoms. So the way to heal CPTSD is to grieve what you wish was different in your life, establish and maintain healthy boundaries with 100% of the toxic people in your life, so that you're not triggered into those old mindsets and the old programming isn't becoming front and center and then taking over your new healthy habits that you've developed over time. And then you cultivate safe relationships with people who build you up and they don't tear you down and scapegoat you. And you do that over and over and over and over again. And that, to me, is a cure. That's healing. I'm telling you it's possible. So I don't know who told you that you'll never heal. I believe it's a lifelong journey. I don't believe I'm ever going to not be working towards living my best life and being my best self. I don't believe that I'm going to be cured and healed so that I can go back to my abusive family and show up for Christmas and birthdays and be treated the way I was treated when I was younger and then expect to heal. Like, that's not the type of healing that I think is possible. If you, whoever watching, if you are looking to heal your CPTSD in a way that allows you to get back in touch with, physically and virtually, with the abusive family members that caused your CPTSD symptoms, and you're not willing to establish and maintain healthy boundaries and cultivate safe relationships, and if you are unwilling to create healthy daily habits and surround yourself with people who build you up rather than tear you down, then yeah, you'll never heal. In order to heal CPTSD, you must become intimately familiar with your emotions, and you must grieve what you wish was different. You must acknowledge that some bad stuff happened and that you wished it would have been different. And you must sit with that and accept the reality of what it is that happened. And then you must keep those toxic individuals that caused that bad thing to happen away from you. And you need to develop healthy relationships and very healthy, firm boundaries with anyone who's toxic, and not allow those toxic people into your life. So that's my answer. I know it's really long, but I believe it's a lifelong journey. Like I said, I don't believe I'm going to wake up healed one day and be able to be like calling my family and being like, when can I come for Christmas? Because that's not realistic. It's just not for me. It might be for you, but not for me. I do believe healing's possible, though. I do. I believe healing is so possible. And whoever told you that you're never going to heal, like, who are they? While this is a lifelong journey, like, and this is a hard journey that I'm on, I feel healthier than I've ever been in my life, Angela. I just had the greatest birthday of my entire life. Even before I had meltdowns and lost my marbles. You know, I mean, that was only 5 years ago. So, I mean, you know, I was 40 years old in the middle of a nervous breakdown, wanting to die, suicidal, all because all these memories came washing back up of everything that I had gone through. And I couldn't make sense of it all. And I was still in touch with all of my toxic family members, 100% of them. That had to change in order for me to heal. So I hope that was helpful. Willow says, is the window of tolerance something that has to do with resilience? My therapist is very aware of whether or not I'm within my window of tolerance and when I am not feeling safe. Absolutely. I believe that the window of tolerance and your resilient zone is they complement one another. They're very similar to one another, but they are not synonymous. They are not identical. So I'm grateful that you have a therapist that is very aware of that, because not everybody has a therapist that's fully engaged and that cares enough to know when you are inside your window of tolerance. And, you know, making sure that if we have painful memories that we're processing, and we can put those in a container at the end of our sessions and come back to them so that we can remain within our window of tolerance, that is a hallmark of a really good trauma therapist. So I really want that for all of you. Francesca says, I have been experiencing difficulty in my cognitive ability, difficulty focusing and getting things done. Always have, but also feel like I'm healing and feeling better. Woohoo! That's awesome. The last part is awesome. The fact that you're experiencing some difficulty, that could be your executive functioning. I actually recorded a video on the topic of executive functioning. It's on this YouTube channel, Francesca. But I want us to explore ways that we can remain in our resilient zone and spend more time, like Willow was talking about, inside our window of tolerance and in our resilient zone, so that we can affirm and reaffirm those new synapses and those new neural pathways that are made, and we can not react to triggers but respond to situations. And that's the goal. I refuse to believe that it's not possible. I refuse. I straight up, flat out refuse to believe that I'm just doomed and destined to just be, you know, experiencing passive suicidal ideation every day for the rest of my life and stuck in hypoarousal, feeling exhausted and depressed and numbed out and disconnected with the world. And like, you know, except for when I'm triggered, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I want to die, like crazy, hypervigilant, like anxiety, panic, you know, so much pain. And then the pain that's in hypoarousal is almost like worse than the pain of being in hyperarousal because of the disconnection that you have with others and with yourself. So I refuse to believe that that is my lot in life. And I'm figuring it out. Like, I'm flippin' determined to figure this stuff out. So, you guys, the more we show up for ourselves and the more often that we feel in body what it's like to experience resilience and to be inside our resilient zone, the more we experience that and we know what that feels like, the more often we can do it. Like, I'm convinced. I am so convinced. So let's continue this discussion on adverse childhood experiences, trauma-informed care, and just what brain scans, brain imaging, and neuroscience says about the way we process information and how we can do the very best we possibly can for ourselves to remain in that place of being able to respond rather than react, and just feel like our best selves and feel confident and not feel so broken and either hypervigilant and panicked or completely disconnected and numb. That's not my lot in life, and I refuse to believe it is. So how many of you guys are still here? There are still like 40 of you. I didn't lose any of you. That's unbelievable. You guys are amazing. So my husband is texting me, asking me what I want for dinner because it is dinner time here. And so I'm going to go. I'm going to call him. But I just love you guys. I would love to see you back here every single Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. I renamed the channel CPTSD Chat. It's something that I actually was talking about doing back in 2016, and then I didn't follow through. And then I was like, I went to do it at the beginning of 2017, and then I was like, I was like afraid, and I was like, no, I don't want to lose everybody, and what if everybody leaves? And I was coming from such a place of fear. So finally it was like this random, I felt just confident and good and awesome, and I just chose to change the name of the channel. So here we are. This is CPTSD Chat, and eventually we're gonna have probably like a monthly Twitter chat again that will coincide with these videos, and people can send in their questions on Twitter, and I'm gonna need Twitter moderators again, just like I used to have. So, but yeah, I'd love to see you either on our daily recovery support calls. You can learn more about those at cptsdfoundation.org, or you can, the free groups as well. Go to cptsdfoundation.org and then click on free groups. And there's also a book club. It's only $5 a month. And there's that cruise. There's a cruise coming up September of 2019, and I'm really excited about it. I'm going to learn more about the details so that I can confidently share details with you about that. Because how amazing would that be for us to all just be sort of like hanging out on a cruise ship together and, learning from experts in our industry? It'd just be incredible. So anyway, you all are amazing. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of your life, and thanks for being a part of my life. I really do want to continue reaching a younger demographic, and I'm excited. I'll tell you more about the books and stuff, the children's book, the parenting book. The children's book is Everything is Talk Aboutable. And then the parenting book is, I'm co-authoring that as well with Angie Atkinson, and it's called Parenting in 2020. And I'll let you guys know more about that when I get more information. But thank you for being here. Please be gentle and kind to yourselves tonight. These videos, when you watch them, when you partake in the chat box, all the things that you're doing and learning, they can be triggering, and they can cause you to be outside of your zone, of your resilient zone, for even hours after the video. So please be gentle and kind to yourself. And thank you. I'll see you back here every single Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Bye, everybody.